Here's another episode of What It's Like to Go to War. And on this episode, I want to explain the phrase, misery loves company. Chances are you've heard this phrase. Did you know that this phrase is centuries old? It actually comes from the famous play, Dr. Faust, from Christopher Marlowe, who was a contemporary of Bill Shakespeare. We call him Bill because William is really formal. And in this book, Marlowe describes a conversation between one of the demons in hell and another partner, and they're asking the question, why does Satan want to expand his kingdom so much? And the answer to that question is misery loves company. Now, this is going to sound like an unusual connection for you, but stay with me for a second. If you know anybody who has served in the military anywhere around the world, chances are they have a buddy, a guy or a gal from the military that they are very close with. In fact, if you listen to people's language who served in the military, they will talk about the people who served in the military as their brother or their brothers and sisters. Did you hear how familial that language is? They take the relationship of another warrior so deep that it becomes like a brotherhood or a sisterhood. And I think that language is absolutely right. I think it's absolutely accurate. I think it's supposed to be a brotherhood or a sisterhood, because anytime two people, it doesn't have to be in the military, it doesn't have to be in combat getting shot at. Anytime two people go through something very difficult together, they're going to connect. They're going to connect at deep levels, and chances are the more profound, the more traumatic that experience was, the deeper the connection is going to be. For me, many of my friends that served with me in the military, and some of those guys who went with me in combat, they are more dear to me than my own blood relation. And my blood relations have been with me my entire life, literally, because we're from the same blood and the same family. We've been with each other, or we've known each other for all of our lives. But the relationships went deeper, faster for those guys and gals that went through some really hard, difficult training with me. In fact, I would be willing to go to the opposite ends of the globe for people that went through military training or went through combat with me in ways that I probably wouldn't go distances that I probably wouldn't travel for family members. And if you're wondering, why does the military use language like brothers and sisters? Why are their relationships so deep with each other? Well, the answer to that question is found in those three words: misery loves company. And the word love in the middle is really the word that I want to focus on. What happens when two people go through a miserable circumstance together is they learn to lean on one another. They learn to trust one another. They probably learn each other's strengths and weaknesses. And in the process, believe it or not, what happens is that they start to love one another. Now, it may not be the kind of love between a spouse. It may not be the kind of love between parents and children or family relationships, but it may be actually even stronger than that in many cases, because the depth of the relationship is directly tied to the trauma that people went through together. And I think there's something powerful. I think there's something beautiful that we should remember about what combat does, what combat training does, let alone what combat does to guys and gals that serve in the military. It forges a bond. In many cases, it forges a bond that will last forever. I had a very good friend who joined the military, basically was drafted at the end of World War II. This very dear friend of mine, a guy by the name of Dr. Bill Buck, who became kind of like a grandfather figure to me, he in his 90s was still writing letters and trying to contact or stay in touch with the people that he served with in 1945. Now think about this. This is 65 or 70 years later, and they're still in touch with one another. And the only other relationships that I have ever seen that are that close is a spouse or children or blood relations from immediate families. Misery does create love, which binds a company of 2 or 3 people together. And one of the unusual, maybe even unexpected benefits of the horrors of combat is people now have found a love and a brotherhood and a sisterhood that will last them, in some cases, longer than their own blood relations will. So misery loves company. And where you see that greater, perhaps, than anywhere else on planet Earth is in the middle of the terrors and hardships of war. And that's why many people have said war is hell and going through hell is miserable. So misery really does love company, and the relationships or the bonds that it creates on the other side of combat are powerful and lasting. And I want to use the word loving bonds are deep and moving. This is just one of those unexpected things that come out as a result of war. Just a little bit of what it's like to go to war for you. See you next time.